In this video, I'm going to talk about disaccharides. In my previous videos, I actually explained what carbohydrate is, and I simply say carbohydrates can be divided into three major classes, which are the monosaccharide, the oligosaccharide, and the polysaccharide. Now, talking about disaccharide, disaccharide is an aspect, or simply let me just say a types of oligosaccharide. I said oligosaccharides contains 2 to 10 sugar units. That is, they contain 2 to 10 monosaccharides that are joined together by glycosidic bond. So any oligosaccharide of 2 sugar units, that is, it contains just 2 monosaccharides, it is mostly referred to as what? Disaccharide. After all, di simply means 2, right? While saccharide simply means what? Sugar. So disaccharide is simply 2 sugar units, and that's what they are. So one thing about disaccharide is that it is an aspect, or simply let me just say the types of oligosaccharide that are sweet to taste. They are sweet to taste, right? I'm talking about the physical properties now. They are sweet to taste. Then another thing is that they are actually soluble. They are soluble because they contain 2 sugar units. Now they are soluble, they are sweet to taste. Another thing is that they can be crystalline, that is, their structure can be crystalline or amorphous. They can be crystalline or amorphous, right? So that's another property of what? Of disaccharide. So another thing is that disaccharide can be reducing sugar or non-reducing sugar. I'm still coming to that aspect. I'm going to explain that aspect very well. They can be reducing sugar or they can be what? Non-reducing sugar. So that's actually the properties of disaccharide that we have. And one thing that I want you guys to know is that since disaccharide contains 2 sugar units, that shows that the sugar units, that each sugar unit are actually connected together by a glycosidic bond. I'm going to show you a typical reaction now. Let's say we have 2 glucose molecules that are connected together, right? Let's say we have 2 glucose molecules that are connected together, right? Now let me just draw a cyclic form of glucose here. Now let's say we have 2 glucose molecules, right? Here, these are glucose, right? So here we are having OH here, right? We are having H here. We are having another what? OH here. We are having hydrogen here. We are having OH is here, right? Then we are having H is here, right? We are going to have OH here. We're going to have this is going to be CH2OH, right? This one is H, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 complete. Now let's say we have another glucose with another glucose. Don't forget that glucose are actually monosaccharides, right? They are monosaccharides, right? So these are another glucose. So in this case, I'm just going to represent this carbon number 1. Then and here as well, I'm having what? I'm having OH is here, and also what? H is here, right? And I'm going to have CH2OH, right? So here I'm going to have hydrogen here, and my OH is here. Then here as well, I'm going to have OH and also what? Hydrogen. Now look at this very well. These are 2 monosaccharides. That is 2 monosaccharides. This is actually, the hydroxy group here is facing downward, so we call it what? Alpha D glucose, right? And here as well, the hydroxy group is facing downward. I'm going to call it what? Alpha D glucose. Now look at this. What's going to happen now? These are 2 glucose. Glucose is actually referred to as what? Is 6 carbon atom monosaccharides. So I'm going to join these 2 glucose together to actually give me what? A disaccharide. And I'm going to do so through condensation reaction. Right? So that shows that disaccharide undergo condensation reaction. Monosaccharide, whenever monosaccharide undergo condensation reaction, 2 monosaccharide undergo condensation reaction, that is, they are going to form disaccharides. So this reaction is going to what? Is going to lead to the formation of what? Of a disaccharide that we actually call we called maltose. We call maltose because maltose is actually formed between the reaction that occur between 2 glucose molecules. When you are condensing 2 glucose molecules together, you are going to form what? Maltose. And in that scenario, an alpha glycosidic bond is formed. Now look at this. Condensation reaction simply means removal of what? Of water. That shows that in all this reaction, we are simply going to do what? Be removing what? H2O, right? And the H2O is going to be like this. You are going to remove the hydrogen of this guy, and also what? Hydroxide of what? Of this guy, right? Is the hydrogen of what? Of this oxygen is going to react what? With the alcohol functional group here, which is the hydroxy group. So once you react them together, you're going to what? You are going to be removing what? H2O, as I actually indicated here. That you remove H2O because you have one hydrogen here, and then one oxygen. That's what? Two hydrogen, H2O. That's actually condensation reaction. Then the next thing I'm going to do is that, look at this very well. I'm going to join both of them together very well, right? I'm going to join them together. Now look at this. Look at what's going to happen here. So here we are having what? This glucose. This is it. Yeah, right? So we're going to be having it like this, right? So here we're going to have something like this. This oxygen here, or this oxygen here. Then this oxygen will be connected to another what? Another molecules of what? Of this glucose here, right? So look at this. So this is what we're going to have. So you're having carbon number 1 OH here, right? So you're having what? Hydrogen here. Now look at this. I'm going to have another one here reacted with this. Then I'm going to have hydrogen to be here, and also what? Hydrogen to be here. Now look at this very well. If you check this very well, this is actually a disaccharide. A disaccharide is formed whenever an alpha glycosidic bond is what? Is established. That is, a single alpha glycosidic bond is established between two monosaccharides. So these are two monosaccharides. This is the first glucose residue, and this is what? The second glucose residue. And as you can see, an alpha glycosidic bond is what? Is formed, but we have to determine the position and the orientation of this glycosidic bond. Now look at these two sugar here. If I start counting here, this is carbon 1, right? This is carbon 2, this is what? Carbon 3, and this is what? Carbon what? Carbon 4, right? So that shows that here the orientation, or simply let me just say the part of this glucose here that participates in what? In the formation of this alpha glycosidic bond is actually what? That of what? Of number 4, right? Is that of number 4. Now look at this now. Here is carbon number 1. That shows that carbon number 1 of this also participates in what? In the formation of what? Of the bond, right? So simply what is going to be happen here is that after reacting them together, the type of bond that is formed, that is established here, is actually called alpha. The reason why it is alpha is because both glucose residue are in alpha form. Look at this. The hydroxy group is what? Is facing downward here. The hydroxy group here as well is what? Is facing downward. That is, the hydroxy group of what? Of carbon number 1, which is the anomeric carbon, is facing downward. That's why it is what? Alpha. Then I'm going to have between what position? Between position 1 of what? Of this sugar, and between what? Position what? Position 4 of this sugar. That shows that I'm going to have alpha 1 4, right? Right? I'm going to have alpha 1 4. Then this is glycosidic bond. That shows that when I join two glucose residues together, two sugar molecule, that is two glucose together, I actually formed alpha 1 4 glycosidic bond. And in that scenario, a new carbohydrate, which is called disaccharide, is formed. So whenever I'm reacting two glucose together, glucose plus glucose, I'm going to be forming what? I'm going to be forming maltose. Maltose is a type of what? Of disaccharide. You understand? It's a type of what? Of disaccharide, and it is mostly formed due to the formation of what? Of two glucose residue. And maltose is actually very important in what? In digestion. It's an intermediate that is formed in what? In digestion of what? Of food, actually. So I'm going to talk more about what? About maltose, right? So now let's just go. So another thing is that after the formation of what? Of this alpha glycosidic bond, one thing about disaccharide is that they undergo condensation reaction. That's the first thing that I want you guys to understand. And the second thing is that they undergo hydrolysis. Hydrolysis reaction. Hydro simply means hydro simply means what? Water, right? Hydro simply means water. We have hydro. Hydro, it simply means what? Water, right? And also lysis. Lysis simply means what? To split, right? You are splitting something. You are using water to break down something, and what you are breaking here is what? Bond. So I might just decide to break this bond, that is to hydrolyze maltose into its components, which are the two glucose residue that are found in the structure of what? Of maltose. So once I add water to this guy, once I add H2O here, it's going to split the bond, right? And don't forget that this oxygen is going to collect one of the hydrogen here, then forming what? Hydroxy group back. Then the hydroxy group here is going to come to this position, and in that case, I'm going to get my two glucose residue, and that shows that disaccharides undergo what? Hydrolysis reaction. That's part of what of their properties. They undergo what hydrolysis reaction that can what in which a bond is what is being broken due to the addition of what of water. That's another property that I want you guys to understand. So that's just is under disaccharide, but I'm going to explain different type of what of disaccharides and also what their function as well now. So let's just basically explain that one so that let's explain that one as well. So now let's go. Now let's go. So in this case, examples. Let's check the examples first. The examples of disaccharide that we have. Examples of disaccharide that we have, right? Let's check it first. So first thing is that as far as the examples of disaccharide is concerned, the first one that we have what the case of what of sucrose. Sucrose is a disaccharide and is also commonly referred to as what as table sugar, right? It is mostly referred to as table sugar. That is sucrose. So another thing, one thing I want you to know is that sucrose is formed from the condensation reaction that occur between glucose and also what and also fructose. Don't worry, I'm going to show you the structural aspect in the next video. So sucrose is formed due to the condensation reaction that occur between glucose residue and also what fructose. That's just for sucrose. Then one thing about sucrose is that it is commonly referred to as table sugar. Table sugar because it is sweet to taste, right? It is sweet to taste, and it is actually found in what in the it's actually found in what in let me just say in sugarcane, right? Your sugarcane is very very sweet, right? And also some extent in your beetroots as well, right? So one thing about sucrose is that sucrose is mostly used as what as sweetener. Yes, it is used as what as sweetener because it is very very sweet. It is mostly used as what as sweetener in food. That's just one thing about sucrose. So that's just it. So that's the function. Sucrose is what sucrose contains two sugar molecule, which is what the glucose and also what the fructose, right? So it is mostly referred to as